There is no isolation quite like the night shift in a control tower. You're sitting in a glass box, 100 feet in the air, detached from the earth. You are the eye in the sky. We're trained to trust our instruments above everything else. If you can't see it out the window, you look at the radar. If it's not on the radar, it doesn't exist. That is the rule. But on a foggy night in 2017, I learned that rules don't apply to everything. Sometimes, things enter your airspace that don't have a transponder, and they don't come from the sky. It was 3 a.m., the graveyard watch. I was the only controller in the tower. Northfield is a regional airport, mostly cargo hops and private jets. At that hour, the sky was dead. The fog was thick, pea soup. I couldn't even see the tarmac lights below me. I was flying blind, relying entirely on my scope. I was reading a book, waiting for the 4 a.m. cargo flight from Boston, when my headset crackled. Northfield Tower, this is Heavy Transport 404, requesting immediate clearance for landing. We are on final. I dropped my book. I spun my chair to the radar screen. The voice was strange. It sounded calm, but there was a wet, gurgling quality to it, like the pilot was speaking with water in his throat. I scanned the scope. It was empty. The green sweep lines circled round and round. Nothing. Station calling? Say again, call sign. I have no target on radar. Please cycle your transponder to 7700. Static. Negative, tower. Transponder is inoperative. We are Heavy 404. We are 3 miles out. We need the runway. We are Heavy. I felt a chill. Heavy usually denotes a massive aircraft, like a 747. Northfield's runway is too short for a Heavy. Heavy 404, I show no target. You are not cleared for approach. The field is socked in. Visibility is near zero. Climb and maintain 5,000 feet. The voice replied instantly, "We cannot climb, James. We have been waiting too long." He used my name. My first thought was that it was a prank, one of the guys in the break room downstairs messing with a walkie-talkie. "Very funny, guys," I said into the mic. "Identify yourself or I'm filing a report." "Look out your window, James." I stood up. I walked to the slanted glass wall of the tower. I looked out into the gray void of the fog. "I don't see you," I said. "Turn on your landing lights." "Lights are on," the pilot said. And then I felt it. The floor of the tower began to shake. The monitors rattled in their mounts. It sounded like a freight train was passing directly underneath the building. "I hear you," I stammered. "I hear engines, but where are you? Are you above the tower?" "Negative," the voice gurgled. "We are below the radar, James. Look at the ground. Look at runway 33. I grabbed the heavy spotlight controls. I aimed the tower's spotlight down on the tarmac, cutting through the fog. I flipped the switch for the runway lights. 2 rows of bright white lights popped on, stretching out into the fog. At first, I saw nothing, just wet asphalt. But then, the asphalt began to move. In the middle of runway 33, the ground was bulging upward. It looked like a mole burrowing under a garden, but on a massive scale. A hump of earth and concrete, 20 feet wide, was moving down the runway. It was tearing the tarmac apart as it went. I watched in horror as the runway lights flickered and died, the cables underneath being severed by whatever was plowing through the earth. "Heavy 404, I whispered. You're underground. The passengers are restless. We are surfacing." The bulge in the runway stopped directly in front of the tower. The vibration became violent. A crack formed in the tower window. Crack! I ducked behind the console. Out on the runway, the earth exploded. Chunks of pavement the size of cars were thrown into the air. I peeked over the console. Through the fog and the dust, I saw a shape rising out of the crater in the runway. It looked like the fuselage of a plane, but it wasn't aluminum. It was rusted, pitted, and wet with mud. Roots were hanging off the wings. It didn't have windows, it had holes, ragged, torn holes where the windows should be. And inside the holes, a dull green light was glowing. The cockpit rose up. The glass was shattered. I grabbed my binoculars. I focused on the cockpit. There was a pilot. He was wearing an old-style leather flight cap. He was sitting in the seat, gripping the yoke, but he was just a skeleton. His skull was picked clean. The headset was clamped over bare bone.
The green light from the dashboard illuminated his empty eye sockets. He turned his head. He looked up at the tower. He looked at me. The radio crackled one last time. "Touchdown," the voice rasped. "Thank you for the clearance, James." Then the plane sank. It didn't take off. It didn't taxi. It simply lost buoyancy. It sank back into the liquid earth like a stone dropped in a pond. The mud and concrete swirled over the cockpit. The green lights faded. The fuselage was swallowed by the runway. The vibration stopped. The silence returned. I sat there on the floor for an hour, shaking. When the morning crew arrived, they found me curled up under the desk. They looked at the runway. There was a massive sinkhole in the middle of runway 33, a pit 30 feet deep. The official report said it was a geological collapse, a sinkhole caused by heavy rains destabilizing the limestone foundation. They filled it with concrete, they repaved it, but they didn't explain the radio logs. The tapes recorded everything, the voice, the clearance request. The FAA investigation team came in. They confiscated the tapes. They told me it was a prank, a signal hijack. But one of the investigators, an old guy near retirement, pulled me aside in the parking lot. He told me about Flight 404. He said that back in the 1940s, there was a military transport plane carrying experimental biological cargo. It crashed during a storm in this county, but they never found the wreckage. They assumed it went down in the lake. He looked at me with tired eyes. "They didn't crash into the lake, son," he said. "They hit the soft mud of the marshlands at 300 miles per hour. They didn't break up. They burrowed. They went deep." I resigned that day. I don't fly. I don't go into high buildings, and when I drive past construction sites and I see them digging deep into the earth, I drive a little faster, because I know that radar only shows you what's in the sky. It doesn't show you what's holding for clearance 6 feet under.